all the spooks out there. I'm Ange.
And I'm Amanda.
And this is Spine Chilling Chats.
Welcome.
Your go-to podcast for all things macabre, morbid, moody,
mysterious, ghostly, alien abductions, anything.
Spooky.
Yes.
So, if this is your first time joining us, welcome.
Hello.
We are here every Wednesday. We welcome you to come join us. If this isn't your first time, welcome back. We're so glad that you didn't leave us and you come back faithfully each week.
Yes.
And I guess let's get to it.
All right. So we're sticking with the birthday themes, and actually tomorrow will be this lovely lady's unhappy birthday. Her name is Dorothea Helen Puente. And again, my voice is not 100% back, but I'm still, I think, good enough to do this. So Dorothea Helen Puente was born January 9th, 1929. In the 1980s, she ran a boarding house in Sacramento, California, and murdered several elderly and mentally disabled people who boarded and lived in the house. She cashed their Social Security checks, and she was accused of a total of 9 murders and was convicted of only 3 of them. The jury was hung on the other 6. She was dubbed the Death House Landlady.
Death House. That makes me think of Murder House.
American Horror
Story.
Yeah. So she was born Dorothea Helen Gray on January 9th, 1929 in Redlands, California, to Trudy May and Jesse James Gray. Her parents were alcoholics. Her father often threatened to kill himself in front of his children. Yeah. He ultimately died of tuberculosis, so joke's on him.
That's a bad way to go, too.
It is, but at least it wasn't by his own hand in front of his children, asshole. He died in 1937. Her mother was a sex worker, and she lost custody of her children in 1938 and died in a motorcycle accident at the end of the year. Dorothea and her siblings were sent to an orphanage where she was sexually abused.
Oh. Sad.
Yeah. She got married for the first time at the age of 16 in 1945 to Fred McFaul, who was a soldier just returned from the Pacific theater of World War II. They ended up having 2 daughters between 1946 and 1948. She sent one of the kids to live with relatives in Sacramento and placed the other one for adoption. And she also had a miscarriage, and that's all it says about her children. Because she doesn't have...
If they got... Oh, she was one of the children that got taken away from her parents?
No, her 2 children.
But her parents, her mom was a sex worker.
Uh-huh.
And she got taken away.
And went to an orphanage, and then she turned around and sent her kid to live with relatives and placed the other one for adoption.
I mean, she probably just...
She's not a very fit mother.
Oh, she probably didn't feel like she was equipped to.
Right. Which is probably the smart thing to do, considering her story, once we hear it. In the spring of 1948, she was arrested for purchasing women's accessories I'm assuming jewelry, earrings, scarves, gloves, women's accessories.
That kind of thing.
She did it with forged checks in Riverside. She pled guilty to 2 counts of forgery, serving 4 months in jail and 3 years probation. 6 months later, she left Riverside, and later in that year, her first husband left her. In 1952, she married merchant seaman Axel Bren Johansson in San Francisco. She made up a fake persona, and she was called Taya Sinhala Nayarda, a Muslim woman of Egypt and Israeli descent.
How did she think?
I don't know, because this is her picture.
Okay, she's a very white-looking lady. Okay.
Yeah. The marriage was not good, go figure. She took advantage of his trips to the sea, because he was a seaman, by inviting men over to their home and gambling his money away.
Does anybody else want to snicker every time you hear the word seaman?
Well, it's funny because when I talked into my phone when I did this, and
it spelled it as
seaman,
like seaman.
Not seaman, seaman. So every time I read it, I'm just laughing inside. In 1960, Puente was arrested for owning and operating a bookkeeping firm as a front for her brothel in Sacramento, California.
You know, at least she's out there making the money.
I mean, she's doing what she needs to do to make money, but it's not in a good way.
I mean, that's a lucrative business.
Yeah. I mean,
she's a
in all reality, is a brothel really that bad?
No. Like I've said before, I am okay with the sex work.
Right.
If that is something you enjoy and you're doing it because you want to and not because
you're forced to,
then by all means, if you want to get paid for having sex, get paid for having sex. If somebody's willing to pay you, do it.
Sex is enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
most of the time.
Right. Right. So why not do something you love to do?
Yeah. I don't see why.
If you have fun at your job, then girl, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. I don't understand why it's illegal.
I don't know. But I don't
make the rules.
I don't either. I just follow
sometimes
them. You follow them.
I am a stickler for rules.
And I just sometimes follow them.
I get very anxious if I break a rule or if I know somebody's breaking the rule. It makes me very uncomfortable.
She does. She does not like breaking the rules whatsoever.
Even if I don't agree with the rule, I still abide by them.
Okay, so she was guilty and was sentenced to 90 days in the county jail. In 1961, Johansson had Puente committed to DeWitt State Hospital after binge drinking, lying, criminal behavior, and suicide attempts.
She needs help.
Yeah. The doctors diagnosed her with pathological liar and an unstable personality disorder. I mean, obviously she's unstable with her personalities because she thinks she's an Israeli Egyptian descent, or she's trying to pull off that persona. And she does another one as well. And she lies because she is gambling and writing forging checks and things like that. She's clearly fucked up. They divorced in 1966, but she continued to use Johansson's name for a little bit of time. She also went by the identity of Sharon Johansson, hiding her turbulent behavior by saying she was a devout Christian woman.
Okay, so she's not Muslim anymore.
No. Okay. She established herself as a caregiver, providing young women with a place for them to live away from poverty and abuse, and she didn't charge them.
I mean, if that was... I'm assuming it's not going to be a nice thing that she's doing. But that
it is for them. It is for the mothers.
So she's not abusing them in any
not that I can, not that, not according
to
this.
Taking advantage of them in any way.
Not according to this.
So that's nice.
Yes. In 1968, she married Roberto Jose Puente. 16 months later, they separated. She said it was because of domestic abuse, and she was trying to serve him divorce papers, but he fled to Mexico. So he was like, fuck you, we ain't getting divorced, I'm out.
I'm going to Mexico.
It was not finalized until 1973. They had a very volatile relationship. She filed a restraining order in 1975, but she continued to use his name for more than 20 years. After her divorce, she focused on running the boarding house located near 15 and F Street in Sacramento. She made herself a very genuine resource to the community to treat alcoholics, homeless people, and the mentally ill by holding AA meetings and assisting individuals to sign up and receive Social Security benefits. Again, with the mothers and the pregnant mothers and the prostitutes, she did a good thing. With these people, she's portraying to do a good thing. Mm-hmm. So she got them to sign up for Social Security benefits. She changed her identity again to a respectable older matron by wearing vintage clothing, large glasses, and not dyeing her graying hair. She also established herself as a respected member of the local Hispanic community, funding charities, scholarships, and radio programs.
So she's just hitting all the little...
You think that's why she's unstable?
Nationalities over here.
Yeah. She married eventually again to Pedro Angel Montalvo. A week after their marriage, he left. And on December 21st, 1978, she was convicted of illegally cashing 34 state and federal checks that belonged to her tenants. She was given 5 years probation in order to pay $4,000 in restitution.
Jeez.
34 state and federal checks. It's just, I'm going to read her victims because she has a lot. But here we go. Victim number 1. On January 16, 1982, she met Malcolm McKenzie, who was 74. She was in a bar and accompanied him back to his apartment. He later reported that Puente had drugged him by slipping something into his drink before she robbed him of a coin collection, watches, and other jewelry, including a diamond ring belonging to his mother, which she removed from his finger while he was incapacitated. But he lived.
So she didn't pry it from his cold dead hand.
No, because after he woke up, he reported her. On April 28, 1982, Ruth Monroe, 61, was found dead due to respiratory depression caused by a massive overdose of codeine. She was in good health when she arrived at Puente's home and over 2 weeks earlier. But by April 25th, she told a friend, "I'm so sick, I feel like I'm going to die." Her death was originally ruled as undetermined overdose, but then later classified as a homicide. So the killing begins. On May 16, 1982, Dorothy Osborne, 49, found checks, credit cards, and other items missing 8 hours after Puente visited her home and prepared her a drink. So again, she drugged this person and stole from her. In July of 1982, she was convicted of 3 grand theft charges. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, state parole until March 21st, 1986, and her federal parole sentence was extended another 2 years until 1990. While she was in jail, she began writing and corresponding with Emerson Theodore Gilmouth, a 77-year-old retiree from Oregon. Oregon?
We say Oregon.
That's what I say, Oregon.
But I believe it's
Oregon.
It's supposed to be Oregon.
I say Oregon.
It's a Midwestern way.
Uh-huh. At the beginning of September 1985, Gilmouth came to Sacramento with his truck and trailer and arrived at Puente's boarding house. On September 9th, 1985, after serving only half of her sentence, go figure, all these people always get out for some reason or another.
I don't understand that. So many times, and then they just kill more.
Yep. So she only served half her sentence and was released, and that's when Gilmouth picked her up. And Ricardo Borderica, a close friend who lived with his family in the downstairs flat at 1426 F Street. In October 1985, she wrote to Gilmouth's sister informing her that she and Gilmouth were to be married on November 2nd.
Oh, how romantic.
I don't even think it said she was divorced from the last guy, Montalvo. It just said that he left a week later. So, I don't know about that. She hired a handyman, Ismael Carrasco Flores, to remodel and asked him to build a 6-foot by 30-inch by 30-inch storage box.
It's oddly specific.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She agreed to give him Gilmouth's truck and $800 as payment. The day after he finished the box, when he returned, he found it nailed shut. And she asked Flores to help her remove the box, which now weighed approximately 300 pounds.
I wonder what's in that.
Mm-hmm. They ended up moving it to a storage location, but then they tried to move it to a storage location, but ended up dumping the box near a river, about an hour away from Sacramento. On January 1st, 1986, a fisherman discovered the box along the Sacramento River and notified authorities. On December 28, 1998, it was determined that Gilmouth was the previous unidentified body in the box. So she killed the dude that picked her up and she corresponded with in prison, who did all these nice things for her. She killed him, gave his truck away, put him in a box. Gilmouth's severely decomposed body was wrapped in numerous plastic bags and covered with a bed sheet held in place by electrical tape. Mothballs and blue toilet deodorizer were also found inside the body. Well, because that smells like or whatever.
Yeah, she's trying to mask the dead body smell.
It was later discovered that after Gilmouth's death, Puente had mailed fake letters and cards to his sister in an attempt to make her believe that he was still alive. She forged Gilmouth's signature on his truck certificate of title and continued cashing his checks until July of 1986. This lady, she is something, and she's fucking old. Like, she looks like this cute little old grandma that looks all frail and fragile. But she's not. Don't let her fool you.
Yeah, because at this point, she's what, in like her 60s or
86, and she was born in 29, so maybe about 50s, late 50s. Yeah. In the fall of 1986, Betty Mae Palmer, 78, went to the boarding house. On October 14, 1986, Puente obtained a California ID card with her photo and Palmer's name.
How?
Well, it was in the 80s. So really, you probably only needed your birth certificate and be like, this is me, and they take a picture of you.
Oh, you're very...
2 months later, the mailing address on Palmer's Social Security checks was changed to Puente's F Street address. She, of course, forged the signature and cashed nearly $7,000 worth of benefit checks. In November 1988, Palmer's partially dismembered body was discovered in a shallow hole in her front yard of the boarding house, in the front yard of the boarding house.
Who's going to bury a dead body in their front yard? How dumb is this lady?
Right, like backyard, side yard, but you buried it in your front yard? A shallow grave in your front yard. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's going to notice that.
No, not at all. Her head, hands, and lower legs were never found. When they say lower legs, do you think they mean from the kneecap down and not from the waist down? Okay.
I would assume.
Me too. Toxicology reports revealed the presence of doxylamine and over-the-counter antihistamine, as well as haloperidol and flurazepam, both of which were previously prescribed to Palmer. She was identified on January 24, 1989, through comparison of previous medical x-rays. On October 21st, 1986, Puente summoned a notary to the hospital room of Leona Carpenter, who was 78 years old, following a flurazepam overdose. She was given power of attorney over Carpenter and began cashing her Social Security checks just 10 days later. In December, after Carpenter was released from the hospital, she went to live with Puente. Once again, Carpenter returned to the hospital. Just a few weeks later, she was discharged. In February of 1987, she disappeared. In November of 88, her body was found in the southeast corner of Puente's yard.
Oh.
Toxicology reports of Carpenter's brain tissue revealing the presence of codeine, diazepam, and flurazepam. I'm telling you, she's like...
How is she getting away with this? In her front yard?
No idea.
I mean, does she have like an acre front yard?
I don't know. In February of 1987, James Gallup, who was 62 years old, moved into the boarding house. On July 20th, 1987, a potentially malignant tumor was found in Gallup's colon. He agreed to further testing, but later, Dorothea contacted his doctor's office, notifying them that he had gone to Los Angeles indefinitely. Guess what?
They found his body in the eastern corner of her yard.
Close. He was buried under the gazebo.
Ah, at least
And-
you tried a little harder with that one.
And that was found in November of 1988. Testing of his brain and liver revealed the presence of amitriptyline, nortriptyline, phenytoin, and flurazepam. What I want to know is how she's getting all this medication. Are they like prescribed these medications and she just keeps refilling them because nobody knows they're dead?
I think that's what I'm assuming.
I would think that too. In July of 1987, Eugene Gamble, 58, was found dead of an apparent suicide, having overdosed on amitriptyline and ethanol. Puente, who was, guess what? Gamble's landlady,
No.
said he had a history of suicide attempts. Though Puente was never charged with Gamble's murder, he was considered a possible victim.
I would say so.
On October 2nd, 1987, Vera Faye Martin, 61, was sent to live with Puente. Starting October 5th, 1987, she forged a number of Martin's Social Security checks totaling over $7,000. On October 19th, 1987, she failed to contact her daughter, Martin failed to contact her daughter on her birthday, which she had done each year. In November of 1988, Martin's body was found buried under a metal shed in Puente's yard. And guess what was found in her toxicology report of her brain and liver?
All the drugs?
Almost. Just flurazepam.
Oh.
On October 21st, 1987, Dorothy Miller, 65, was placed in an upstairs flat in Puente's home. She introduced Miller to Ricardo Ordorica. And the following November, Ordorica became the representative payee for Miller's Social Security benefits. Just weeks later, after her arrival, Miller had disappeared, and on November 20th, 1987, she hired a carpet cleaner to remove a large pile of foul-smelling slime
I
in
wonder
Miller's
what that could
room.
be.
She continued to forge Miller's checks totaling over $11,000 after she was no longer at her house.
She pays somebody to remove the bloody, rotten carpet. That person didn't question it or think, wonder what this large body-shaped, blood-looking,
Thing is,
rotten smelling carpet spot is. Like, and this isn't an old case. Like, really,
No.
this is.
we're in the 80s,
These are
87,
80s?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is only 37 years ago.
And they just started doing DNA testing, right? In the 80s?
I think they had.
Or was it 90s?
I think it was the 80s.
I think it was too.
But I'm not positive. Don't quote me.
But still, like, all these people she's cashing all these checks. I don't know. Miller's remains were later discovered buried under a slab of concrete near some rose bushes. Tissue samples from her brain revealed the presence of carbamazepine and flurazepam. On November 29th, 1987, Brenda Trujillo sent a letter to the Social Security office in Sacramento accusing Puente of stealing her Social Security checks totaling $3,500. Trujillo met Puente in Sacramento County Jail in 1982, and the two later shared a prison cell. After her release, Trujillo moved into Puente's boarding house, where Puente helped her apply for Social Security benefits. Trujillo claimed that Puente drugged her and called her parole officer, causing her parole to be revoked before Trujillo received the checks. What a shitty thing to do. She was your cellmate. She confided in you. You let her live with you. Then you force her to take these drugs somehow and then get her thrown back in jail. Like, you're a shitty person. In February of 1988, Alvaro Bert Gonzalez Montoya, 51, arrived at Puente's home. In March, an application designating Puente as Montoya's benefits payee was filed. At the end of August, a roommate saw a man clearing Montoya's clothes out of the closet. So, like, she's moving fast.
Yeah, it's like one after the other. She's not going to have room left in her yard.
He missed an appointment on August 29th and was last seen on August 24th. She told several people that Montoya went to Mexico to visit his relatives. Social workers continued to try to contact Montoya in September and October to no avail. In November, Puente asked Donald Anthony, a former convict who had been working in her yard, to contact the social worker, pretending to be Montoya's brother-in-law.
She's pretending to be a man?
No, the guy working in her yard. She asked him to pretend to be his brother-in-law. He agreed and called, stating his name was Michael Obregon, and that he picked up Montoya from the F Street house and took him to Utah. Now, she just said he was in Mexico.
So they can't even get their story straight?
No. The social worker was suspicious and told Puente that she was going to call the police. On November 10th, the social worker received a letter purportedly from Michael Obregon, wrapped in a paper towel to avoid fingerprints. Days later, Montoya's body was found buried adjacent to Carpenter. The toxicology report revealed the presence of loxapine, flurazepam, diphenhydramine, amitriptyline, and carbamazepine. Carbamazepine?
Yeah, I don't know. Some sort of drug.
Montoya had prescriptions for all of the drugs except for the carbamazepine.
So how does she get it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. How is she getting all these things? On March 9th, 1988, Benjamin Fink, who was 55, was sent to live with Puente. His brother visited him on a weekly basis for 6 weeks. By the end of April, Fink was gone. Like, that's just a little over a month. Like, that was quick. Another tenant reported smelling a foul odor coming from his room, but was told that it was just the sewer backup. On a table,
shit and
decomposing
bodies are two completely different smells.
On April 29th, she received 12 bags of cement. And that June, she had a hole dug next to the door of the metal shed, which was later filled with concrete. In November, Fink's body was discovered in this area, wrapped in a plastic knotted bedspread. Secured with duct tape and covered with the blue absorbent pads, his toxicology report said that he had amitriptyline, loxapine, and flurazepam in his system. Those are the
confirmed kills.
Yes, but she still only got charged for 3 because the other, the 6 of them, was a hung jury. So even though those are confirmed,
but they're in her yard.
I know, but they can't prove it. I know. Yeah. So she was only convicted of 3 of the 9, even though the 9 were confirmed suspicious, or her people. What do you call them? Victims.
Her people.
Her people.
Yeah. I'll have my people contact her.
Your people. All right. So she was arrested on November 7th, 1988. The police were speaking with John Sharp, who used to live at the boarding house, about the disappearance of Montoya. Sharp told the police he had seen Montoya 2 days prior, but then slipped a note to the officer that said, and I quote, "She wants me to lie to you." He later met with him by himself to tell his side of the story on November 11th, 1988. The detective went back to the residence and she gave her permission to dig in some areas that were recently disturbed. About a half hour later, he was discovered. About a half hour later that he was discovered, the first body, a few hours after finding the first body, she disappeared. So she was there, and then they found the first body, and a few hours later she was gone.
They didn't put her in custody while they were searching the property?
Nope. November 13th, 1988, an APB was issued, an all-points bulletin, was issued on November 16th, 1988. Charles Wilgeis, along with Jean Silver of CBS, alert the police to her whereabouts in a motel in Los Angeles. Charles met Puente, who was going by the name Donna Johansson, the day before at a bar. He recalled seeing her on a CBS morning newscast and reached out to Jean Silver, who met Charles at his apartment, and together they got a hold of law enforcement, and she was arrested on that same day. Her trial and conviction. On November 17th, 1988, she was flown from the Hollywood Burbank Airport to Sacramento. She was escorted by the police and booked in the county jail. She was then formally charged with the murder of Montoya on March 10th, 1989. Criminal charges were filed against Flores, but they were dismissed due to the statute of limitations expiring 3 years after Gilmouth's body was discovered. Flores was later granted immunity for his testimony against Puente. So, I mean, okay, I get it, but he was also involved.
Yeah.
He should still get some kind of punishment.
Agreed.
But I guess if it catches the more evil of the two.
But a lot of times they'll make a deal.
Yeah.
You help us get.
Yeah, that's why he was granted immunity.
Yeah.
On March 31st, 1989, a complaint was filed charging Puente with 9 counts of murder with special circumstances qualifying as a death penalty case. Most victims have been drugged until they overdosed. She then wrapped them in bed sheets and plastic lining before dragging them to the open pits in the backyard for burial. So somewhere in the backyard.
Well, yeah, she ran out of space in the front.
May 24th, 1990, the prosecutor rested his case for the preliminary hearing to determine whether the case would be proceeded to trial, having called 71 witnesses and introducing 108 exhibits of evidence.
That's a lot.
Yeah, 71 people were witnesses is a lot too.
And they didn't stop her sooner? 71 witnesses?
It gets better. June 19th, 1990, a judge ruled that there was ample circumstantial evidence to send Puente to trial, and on July 31st, 1990, she pleaded not guilty. There were a number of delays, and in October of 1982, the judge ruled that she would face all murder charges.
Good.
And they would all be heard in the Monterey County on December 21st, 1990. The jury consisted of 8 men and 4 women, and they were selected. And then 6 months later, alternatives, 5 women and 1 man were selected to back up. The trial began February 9th, 1993. By the conclusion of the trial, 156 witnesses testified, and 3,100 exhibits had been submitted, and over 22,000 pages of transcripts were recorded. So you mean to tell me you had 156 witnesses and you still couldn't convict her of all 9 murders, number one, or all 9 charges or whatever, and you couldn't catch her sooner?
That doesn't make any sense.
The jury deliberated for 11 days in August 2nd of 1993. The jury told the judge, Michael J. Verga, that they were deadlocked.
How are you?
On all 9 of the cases, they were deadlocked.
I don't understand.
I don't either. I don't know.
Their literal body parts are in her yard.
Their dead bodies are in her yard.
How are you going to say she didn't do it?
Right. So they were deadlocked in all 9 counts of murder and asked for further instruction. Verga ordered the jury to resume their efforts to break the 10-pack on August 26, 1993. She was convicted on 3 counts of murder: Benjamin Fink, Leona Carpenter, and Dorothy Miller. The jury, after deliberating for 35 days, remained deadlocked on the other 6 cases: Ruth Monroe, Something Cynthia, Theodore Gilmouth, Betty Mae Palmer, James Gallup, Vera Faye Martin, and Alvaro Gonzalez Montoya. During the penalty phase of the trial, they found them deadlocked once again on October 13th, 1983. She was spared the death penalty on December 10th, 1993. Oh, I'm sorry, that was October 13th, 1993. She was spared the death penalty on December 10th, 1993. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She was incarcerated at the Central California Women's Facility in Chowchilla. August 28, 1997, the appellate court in San Jose affirmed her murder convictions, but ordered an examination of the misconduct allegations. After a 3-day hearing on September 25, 1998, Judge William D. Curtis rejected the allegations. Puente died in prison at Chowchilla on March 27, 2011, from natural causes.
That's a shame.
Yeah, poor thing, right? She was...
No, it's a shame. It was natural causes.
Yeah, that too. She was 82 years old.
So she got to live her full life.
So ridiculous.
And she does. She looks like a sweet old grandma.
She does look like a sweet... I know. We're going to post a picture. But yeah, she looks like a sweet old lady. But she's not.
No.
She's the death house landlady. Span of crimes were from 1948 to 1988. And it was all in California. There's several shows done on her. So you can look them up. Dorothea Puente. They're very interesting. Very interesting.
So it covered a lot of deaths.
Yeah.
And the sheer audacity of burying people in your front yard, I can't comprehend it.
Yeah, like
that's ballsy. That is so ballsy.
You're like, okay, I'm just gonna go out and dig a hole in my front yard and then put a body in it. Like, when did you dig the hole? Who dug the hole? And how did you get the body out with nobody seeing?
No neighbors. Apparently, 130 some people saw you though.
They saw something.
Yeah.
Or were too scared to say anything. I don't know.
Yeah, that's craziness.
And for her to cash, like, she seemed like she was doing a good thing. She opened a boarding house and, come live with me. We'll get you set up. I'll get you your Social Security checks and I'll do this and I'll do that. And then she kills them for their Social Security checks. Yeah. So it was just all a setup to begin with. She was never doing anything to be nice.
No.
The only nice thing she did was for those pregnant girls and sex workers. Because none of them were involved. Like, were killed or whatever.
Yeah, you don't know if she was exploiting them some other way.
True. That's true.
Craziness, I say.
So that's all I got.
If you liked this episode and want to hear more like it, you can go to our website at www.spinechillingchatspodcast.com. There's links to other episodes. There's a link to our merch store.
Yes, buy some merchandise.
There's
a place where you can submit your own stories or comments or anything that you want us to cover.
Yep. And if you want to send us an email directly from your email, you can always send it to spinechillingchatspodcast@gmail.com, and there is no hyphen in that one.
Yep.
But yeah, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the things.
All the things.
All the places.
Like, subscribe, share.
All the goodies.
Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your grandmas, because, apparently grandmas are good and bad.
Tell your boarders.
Yep. So
tell the bodies in your front yard, whatever.
If you want to hear anything else, just shoot us a message. We'll cover fairy fucking. What else?
Glitches in the Matrix.
Giants. Ogres.
alien abductions, cryptids, true crime,
Anything.
supernatural. We like it all. We'll cover it all. We'll research it all. So let us know what you want to hear.
Yes.
And with that, we hope you keep listening. We hope you come back. And most of all, we hope you keep it spooky. Bye, guys.
Bye.